Hello and welcome back. We are going to continue with our series of these beautiful slimline cards using the brand new colour range from Close to My Heart and this fun stamp set called Floral Sentiments. It's in our brand new core book. So we are up to card number 3. So we've already done this one here and this one here in my previous little process video. So if you want to see how those were put together, please check out that video. This is the next one that we're going to work on. So I'll just remove the others from the view and we are going to work on this Thinking of You rather lovely card. So as you can see, this card is actually making a good play of some of our new colours, our lovely soft and dreamy colours that we've got, graduating from our deeper pine through mist down to periwinkle. So absolutely gorgeous. Sorry, there's periwinkle there. So that is what we're going to be working with. So I've got my little envelope with all my bits pre-cut. Now just remember, if you are following along with me, you will have received the instructions, and the instructions have the cutting guide. So this is project number 3. So when you're looking at all the cutting guides, I'll just bring it back in view, you're looking for anything that has a 3 against it. So we had a couple of 3/4 by 3.5 inch strips in the Seabrook cardstock. We also had for card number 3, we had a 2.25 by 6 piece from Periwinkle. We also had a 3/4 by 3.5 couple of pieces from Mist, and the same will be from our Pine, 3/4 by 3.5. Now we also had to cut out a tiny little bit from our Honey Butter, which are these 2 little 1/4 inch by 1 3/4 inch strips, and from the White Daisy we had a 1 3/4 by 5 inch. So they're all in your instructions that you've got to work with as you work through these different projects. So this one here, we're going to be using a variety of colours again. We're going to be using our Harbour, which I absolutely love, with our brand new Periwinkle, then bringing in Sage and Sundance as our complementary colours in there. So what we just need to do is a bit of pre-stamping, is to do stamping directly onto our large strip of white, and then we're actually going to use a little bit of scrap white to do our extra flower that gets popped out. Okay, so we're just going to turn this over and get to work on our little bit of stamping. So our stamping is going to consist of a couple of sage leaves, and then we're going to do some second generation stamping with our Harbour and our Periwinkle and our sage to create the third little cluster. So I'm going to start with that cluster first. We're going to start with our Periwinkle as our larger part of the flower, but as I say, we're going to do this in second generation stamping. So I need to pull in my scrap paper once again, just so I've got somewhere to stamp off. And I'm going to just flick this over. And this actual flower is going to be virtually in the center of your piece of White Daisy. So I'm going to ink up that flower in Periwinkle. In fact, I better show you which flower. It's this one here at the top. Okay, and we're going to ink that up in Periwinkle. We're going to stamp off lightly, and then we're going to stamp reasonably in the center. And because it's second generation, I'm just going to hold it there a few seconds longer than normal, and you can see it's got a lovely light flower base showing. So that's the start. Then we're going to pull in Harbour to do the centerpiece. So the centerpiece of the flower is actually sitting pretty close to it on the stamp set. It's this one over here. And we're going to ink it up and do second generation stamping once again, just to be consistent. So I'm going to stamp off lightly, and then I'm going to stamp in the center of that flower. So that's a lovely graduation, and it doesn't look anywhere near as dark, so you're giving yourself more variance of colour by doing the second generation. And the last thing we're going to do is fill in the center of this flower, which is with this little oval shape here. Again, we're going to bring in Sundance. Oh, I just lost it off my block. We're going to bring in Sundance for this, but we're going to do it second generation, just so it's not such a bright orange. So stamp it off lightly, and then stamp it in the center. So you've got a lovely flower as the base to work with. We're then going to do a couple of sage leaves. So the leaf that I am going to use for this one is coming from over here near the word Best Wishes, and it's a slightly more crinkly outside, and I'm going to get the one in this direction first, and then we're going to use the one from that direction later. So I'm going to do 2 sage leaves near this flower and then one a little bit further away. So let me just get it all inked up. We're going to do a sage leaf that's coming off our next cluster, and then we're going to do another one coming off this one in second generation. So I hold it there a little bit longer because it's a very light colour. In fact, I probably did my leaf back to front on that one, but it's not going to be a big issue. We really want it to be coming out, so I'm just going to do another one going the right direction over here. Then we're going to pull out the leaf going the opposite way, and we're going to have that one coming up the top. Pop it over here. Okay, then to finish off, we're going to grab a little bit of scrap paper, and this time we're not doing second generation but first generation. We'll do the periwinkle and the harbour again, just like we did before. So I'll pop this one on here, periwinkle. We're going to do our harbour centre. Really nice combo, those two. Very rich colour the harbour is, full blown. And then we will do a little bit of Sundance in the centre, and this time it's full generation as well. So as bright as it comes. So that's a lovely bright flower. So I'm just going to clean up my little stamps, and then from there we're going to fussy cut out that flower so we're ready to add it to our strip. Oh, one more thing to stamp is your sentiment. So there's a whole heap of sentiments in here that you can choose from. The one in the example in your instructions says the praying for you. I have used thinking of you for this one, and then this time I think I'm going to put sending love and sympathy, I should say. So that's going to be in our harbour ink, which is a nice deep shade for our sentiment. So I'll pull that one in, back on our base piece. Sending love and sympathy, and I'm just going to do it quite lightly because we don't want the words to be smudged. So I just, oh, I didn't even press it down hard enough. I did it so lightly. Let me just see if I can finish that one off. There we go. Sending love and sympathy. Okay, so we've got that ready to roll. Now I'll just grab my scissors, and just like we did in the previous card, we're going to fussy cut this out. I'll keep my scissors pretty much in the same direction, but swivel my white daisy piece of cardstock just so that we get a nice smooth edge, and I'm keeping that little bit of a white border because it's much more forgiving than going in too close and then looking like it's a bit of an uneven edge. I just wriggle away, give it a little bit of an organic finish. There we go. So we've got our little piece ready to roll. So that is going to be sitting with this flower popped out over top. And it just makes a lovely little cluster. So to pop it out, I'm just going to grab a little bit of foam. I'm using up my shaker window pieces because that is just great free bits of dimension. So I love doing shaker cards because I get that little bonus. I'm going to pop this one on, and then you can finish that little cluster if you've got them with your little die cut flowers. So let's just see, we'll just grab a smallish one that's going to tuck in under here, and I can use either a glue dot, which I do have handy, or you could always use a little bit of wet glue on here. Just peel off the glue dot. It's just being a bit tricky. We'll pop that one under there. Have that little piece coming out, and then we could just choose a bit of a funky flower. Let's just choose this one here, will do the job. And I'm just going to put this time a little bit of the wet glue on the back, just a touch. And I could be using actually my tweezers to help me here, just so that I don't get my fingers all wet and dirty, but we're all pretty good. We'll pop that one in there. So there's our cluster. So now it's simply putting it together. A nice and easy little card this. What is fun about this card though is the graduating colours. So we're going to get a base for this card. As I say, we fold it over, and I always just make sure that I've got my little corners lined up, and then refold, rescore if necessary. Sometimes it just needs that little bit extra. make sure you've got it opening the correct way, and then we're going to layer up our base pieces. So we're going to start with pine, and as you'll see with all of these pieces, we've got a dark side, there it is, and a light side. So we're going to start with our dark side as our very first piece. Pop that on, right up to the edge. Then we're going to do the same with the light one. Right up here. And now we're going to move on to mist. Beautiful shades of mist. So we've got our darker side and our lighter side. So all these pieces are 3/4 of an inch wide. It's just the right sort of width to work for this card to make quite a statement. It actually ends up covering half the card, I guess, or virtually. And then we've got our Seabrook, which I think is just such a stunning colour. So we've got our darker and lighter shade of that one. Pop that colour in. Make them as even as possible. Now what you might find, as I've found here, you may not have cut your strips quite as perfectly the same length as what you'd hoped. So at this point, I will simply just grab my little trimmer and do a slight little slice there to tidy that one up. Won't do that right now, but that's all you need to do. Now, your periwinkle is going to be your base piece, and this is going to sit on top. And I'm just going to put a bit of foam tape, a bit of ordinary tape on there, and I'm just going to bring it in a little bit because I'm going to be pulling in those little yellow strips, and because my sentiment's pretty close to the edge, I'm going to need to overlap slightly. So I'm going to do my 2 tinsy-wincy little strips that we cut from the honey butter, starting with the light one closest to the words, and then going to the darker one. Such a pretty shade of yellow, this honey butter. So we've got our 2 variations. If you get a little bit of extra sticky, because they are such skinny strips, I just grab my rub and remove eraser and go over that. Now we just need to do a little dovetail on this end, and to do that nice and easily, I'm just going to take the center point and go in as far in as I want the dovetail to go, and then I just simply go from each corner to that point, and that gives us a nice even dovetail. So we've got our little dovetail ready to roll, and all this piece gets raised up so that it's got a nice bit of shadow behind it. So once again, I'm just going to use up all my little bits of foam. This is the deeper thickness, the foam that comes from our shaker elements, and that's why I like to use it up on cards, because I tend to use thinner foam tape on my scrapbooking, so it's not quite so bulky. So we just simply have to pull off all the little pieces, do that over the rubbish bin, and once we attach it, we have a beautiful little card. So you can imagine doing this in lots of different shades. You could do a whole hue of sort of pinky reds all the way through. You could do stunning oranges to yellows. You could be doing any of those kind of shades that just work for the occasion you want it to be. Sending Love and Sympathy works beautifully on this. I'll just tidy up that little bit down the bottom, and we have got another card done. Hope you enjoyed seeing how quick and easy that lovely little card was. Now we're going to move on to card number 4. So let's get started on card number 4. So this is a beautiful bright card, and I'm thinking this time around, I did do it as Sending Love and Sympathy. The one in the example says Thinking of You, so I think I'll do Thinking of You for this next one. So I've chosen that sentiment off, and now first off we are going to create this absolutely gorgeous border, making it from using our beautiful stamp set from the Floral Sentiments. So we are going to choose all these different flowers. We are going to choose this large flower, and we will use papaya ink with it. We will choose the slightly smaller flat flower, and that one we're going to use Sundance with it. Then we're going to choose this half flower or side-on flower. We'll use Periwinkle. And then we will use one of these sprigs. I've chosen this one, which we will use Second Generation Harbour. And then we're going to choose a couple of leaves and put them through with Sage, and then obviously the little stemmed centres. And all of that is going to go around the outside of this card and create such a beautiful background. So you will need a bit of scrap paper for this one underneath you. I'll just flip my mat over once again to have the sponging side. So on here I'll grab my next envelope with bits and pieces in it, and we need to get out the plain white piece in the background. So we've got all our little bits, keep that to one side, and I'll pull out my bigger piece. Did I get all the bits? No, I didn't quite get all the bits. Pull those over there. We're also going to do a little bit of stamping on this Seabrook piece, and the central piece, which is another piece of white daisy, we'll be doing a little bit on there shortly too. But let's create that gorgeous background. So I'm going to start with the largest flower, which is our papaya, the one that was the flower from the top left corner. And we're going to do this in different angles all the way around this piece of white. Remembering we only need the outside done. We're going to stamp off so that it actually comes off the page a little bit, off our project a little bit, so it's as though it's just been a piece that has been cut from a beautiful piece of patterned paper. I'm going to do this one over the corner, and I guess we'll just do one more up this direction somewhere. And that starts us off with our largest stamp. Okay, the next one we're going to look at doing is the flat Sundance flower. So let's get the Sundance ink out. So any sort of yellowy ink's kind of fun for this one, yellowy orange. And this is a bit of a flat flower. We're just going to pop that around, and I kind of keep to the pattern of having it on the same side as the other, but maybe in, maybe out a little bit. Okay, we'll have one down here. We'll have one over here, and that should be enough of that. Now, we don't do any inners with the Sundance, so we'll close that one up as well. Now, the next one we're going to do is our periwinkle, which is sort of like the half flower or the side-on flower. And again, we're just doing all of these in first generation stamping, so that's just going to come in off the side. Bring this one in here off the side as well. I'll bring one in down here. And I only did 3 in my example, but I'm actually thinking I might pull in another one, tuck one in over here. And to even it out, I think we need something just a little bit up here. There we go. Oh, I didn't ink that one up. Went on the wrong bit. We'll just go over that. Awesome. So we're getting a nice little background so far with this. Remembering the centre is going to be all covered up. So when you're making your backgrounds, it's a good idea to do some larger elements and then some smaller elements. So this next one we're going to do is actually using the Harbour ink, and it's this lovely sprig, but we're not going to do it really strong because it's such a deep colour, Harbour. We're actually going to stamp off. Oh, we better do that one again, make it nice and even. Stamp off, and then we're going to stamp on to our project, just so we have a softer effect with this one. We'll sneak it in between a couple. Bring one in coming up through here. And I'm going to do quite a few of these because they're actually quite a lovely shape. Keep one going in through here, it'll be quite cute. One coming in here. Oh, my head wasn't under there and getting in your way just then. And we'll have one coming in over here. That could be enough for now. We'll see if we need to pull in any more of those in a little bit. Okay, and now we can go for our little leaves. So we've got some beautiful sage leaves to add into the mix. So I've got a couple of different leaf stamps on here. So again, I'll start with the larger leaf and just do a few of those. Pull them in wherever you feel they might need a little bit of colour. Just a couple of those ones. And now I'm going to do some of the smaller leaf, which is a slightly skinnier one that I chose. So we'll pull those coming in and off the page. Bring a little bit in there. We need another one in here. And I think we just need a bit more greenery coming from above. maybe one more too. There we go. So we've got a nice little background. Now it might look very slightly messy on the inside, but we're not going to worry about that because we will be covering all that up when we pop the rest of ours together. The last thing we haven't done is entered into the little centers. So I've got the bigger oval shape from our stamp set. That's the one that's near the top. And I'm going to fill in this larger flower with that. And I actually might just stick to the sage to do that. So we're just going to go around lining it up and popping something in the inside. It's quite hard to line up when you're on camera, so I don't always quite get it right. So I'm not sitting over the top of it. Now that's all of those ones, and now we're going to do the smaller circle inside the Sundance flower, which I'm going to pull back the periwinkle for. Okay, so the little smaller circle. That's quite a contrast, isn't it? It looks pretty neat. It is such a lovely bright variation of colours here in this particular card, which is really lovely, really bold. Okay, I think that's all of the background done. So that piece is finished. Now we also need to stamp just a few little dots along our little piece here from the Seabrook range. So we're going to do those in sage on top of, oops, that piece. I'm just losing my tiny little one. It got a bit wet. Rightio, let's do that. So this requires a bit of a steady hand. You're just going to keep stamping your little circles. Try and keep them in a line, relatively evenly spaced. One more, I think, will do it. There we go. So we've got a nice little strip that's going to go through the centre. And then the last thing we need to stamp is our sentiment and its little cluster around it. So I can do this on the straight black. So this one, as I say, you can choose whatever sentiment you like, but we're going to do these gorgeous tiny weeny little flowers, which you can find all the bits over in this little corner. So that's the single stemmed flower and that's your double stemmed flower. So we'll do our stems. Oh, actually, I might just do the sentiment first so I know the spacing that I need. Now to line this up and make sure I get it at the right place, I will just pop my two little pieces of card above it so that I can visually see how much room I've got. And I'm going to use Harbour to do my little sentiment. I'm going to go quite lightly with the sentiment because it's quite a fine font. Right, so we've got our sentiment in place. Now we can do our gorgeous little flowers. So I'll start with the single stemmed flower. So we'll do the sage background first. So that's going to come up the side like that. And then we're going to put our little head on top of the flower. So I'll just borrow this small block here. And the head on top of our flower is going to be with our periwinkle ink. Pop our periwinkle ink on top, really pretty, and then we're going to finish it off with a little bit of Harbour and just the tiny little inside piece. So I'll steal this one as well, pop it over there and do our tinsy little Harbour inside piece. And it's this layering that we're doing that creates the really neat effect of these gorgeous little flowers. So that's your single stem done. Now we're going to take the double stem. Going to start off with our leaves, which is rather sweet. Then we're going to get our slightly bolder little toppings of them that we're going to use our new periwinkle on. And it's so great because they come as a little set of two. So they space them out perfectly for you. And the last little piece to enter in is the Harbour center. So we're just going to pop that into the middle and it's rather cute. So that there is all the stamping we need to do for this card. Was quite a bit more stamping than some of the others, but what an effect you've created. So all we need to do now is to put it all together. So I'll flip back to our mat, pull this card over, and we're going to get our little mist background. Oh, all my bits flying away from me, and there's some tinsy bits, so we just got to make sure we got them all. Okay, so I've got my mist background. You can choose to do the darker or the lighter side. I'm actually going to go with a deeper colour, given that we went for quite bold shades in our flowers. So I will add that white stamped strip to our little mat. Now just be aware that your fingers could be a bit inky. Trying my best not to get ink onto this white. Okay, and that's going to go on here, but I'm actually going to raise it up slightly when we're done. Next we will place our two top pieces, which are our skinnier pieces, and again you can go for the bolder or the lighter. It's over to you. I'm going to stick to the bolder actually and just keep this a beautifully bold card, and I'm going to use my little mat to help me line these up perfectly. Okay, so we just need to go slightly in, slightly corded, not quite, go slightly further in. That's looking better. Right, and then we're going to bring in a bit of our periwinkle. Go the deeper shade as well. But honestly, I think with the other one I went lighter shade, so it's just your personal preference here. So cute. So that's layering up from that end. Now I'm going to layer up from the bottom, just to keep it all relatively consistent. So I'm going to stick with the darker side. Pull my little colour in. Now we've got our honey butter. Keep our little spacing quite consistent, which is probably 1/8 of an inch, I would suggest. Now, why have I got such a skinny little piece? The one I used last time wasn't quite so skinny, but we'll go with it. It will work fine. Just a tinsy little piece of mist by the look of it. And in fact, probably this is the correct size. I most probably just did the wrong size as my first one if I was measuring it. And now we've got our little stamped piece of Seabrook that we can just add in. Looks rather delightful. We're going to finish off with our foam on the back. Raise it up. Always good to have a little bit in the centre with the foam with such long cards like this. I might just add in a couple of these little pieces just to use them. Foam tape makes such a difference with your crafting. If everything is absolutely flat, you lose those shadows, and the shadows are what create a really neat effect at the end. So let's just make sure this is straight, line it up. It looks pretty good. And that there is going to go onto our card base. Let's just fold our card base in. Add this to the front of the card base. There should be a little bit of a white border around. And to finish off, we will pull in our beautiful little thin die cuts again. Let's just pull this one here. That's gorgeous. Might just need the scissors to pop that little piece out. All done. Right, put a little dot behind that of glue. Then we'll get a little bit more of a flat looking flower just to mix it up. That one's going to come down over here. Again, a little dot of glue on the back. And the last one, we've actually got a little layered up flower. So we're going to use, let's just find one we can use. We're going to use a tinsiest little piece to layer up with, which I will just need to, again, you can almost shake out those pieces, they come out so easily. Just use my scissors with how tiny they are, so it's a little bit delicate. And that's going to go on top of just a sweet little flat flower. Right, so let's pop them in and we will be done with card number 4. What do you think, guys? What's been your favourite so far? I think my favourite is yet to come, to be honest. Loving them all. They're all just very subtle, sweet flowers. You could go sweet cards you could give to almost any type of person. Let that dry off. There you go, all done. So that's card number 4 sorted. I'll be back to you another time with card number 5 and card number 6. Hope you enjoyed popping that all together. See you soon.